I'm Tom McCutcheon,
I'm Joe Schmidt.
and we're here to answer your questions on virtualhorsehelp.com.
Hi, Tom and Joe. I have a 5-year-old horse that has been in reining training since day one. He came from a very well known trainer and has been with a professional the entire time. He has now started drifting sideways during his spins, however. Do you have any advice on why this might be occurring and what should be done to put a stop to this before it becomes a serious habit?
Sometimes when a horse drifts in a turnaround, it's associated if they're leaning towards something. Could be a gate or towards another horse. And to fix that, you might just have to, like say the gate's on your left-hand side, and every time you're coming around that turn, they start leaning towards the gate. You might just have to pull back on the reins, set them back on their butt, and then when they're away from the gate, then you just turn them loose to where every time they start leaning that way, they feel a little bit of pressure, and then when they're away from the gate, there's no pressure. So hopefully that would tend to keep them back on their butt and keep that turn in the same spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of reasons why they might be doing that, but the first thing I would always check is just that, are they leaning? And probably you're going to feel it somewhere else also. You're going to feel it, generally if they drift one direction, that one direction will be towards the gate. And I would just go back and see if you can feel it if you're fencing, see if they lean that way. If you're circling, feel if they lean that way, and try and first figure out if that's where your problem lies. And more often than not, that's it. They're just leaning somewhere.
Yeah, I think a big thing is making sure that you're not trying to compensate for that lean, or like Tom says, as you start feeling it, you don't start using your body as a crutch to try to fix it. I think if both Tom and I think if we start to feel that, we'll almost let the horse make the mistake a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit more black and white.
Yeah, for sure. I'd identify the problem like that, and then go from there.
Tom and Joe, I am looking for options regarding internships at top equestrian facilities such as Tom McCutcheon Reining Horses. What are facilities like yours looking for in their interns when it comes to barn help, riding, and office help? In general, what qualities do you look for in an intern?
Well, the biggest thing for me is quality people. That's really the hardest thing to find these days, and I don't think it's necessarily just in the horse business. I think finding quality young people that are willing to work, that you can rely on. I mean, it seems like there's always a place for somebody whose work ethic is there. You can trust them. You can count on them. You know that, when you leave, things are going to be taken care of. So that's the biggest thing, work ethic and being reliable and trustworthy.
Yeah, work ethic is probably the biggie, good attitude. You're going to be dealing with a lot of different people, from different parts of the country or different parts of the world. So you got to be a good team player. We work a lot of hard, long hours. You just got to be the guy that's ready to fill in and do whatever's needed, from seeing a piece of trash on the ground or a halter laying on the ground, picking it up without having to be told what to do. You have to treat things like they're your own. Like Tom said, if everybody goes off to a horse show, you're the only one there. Everything better be looking as good as it was when we were there, or even better. And I think it's just goes back to good work ethic and just good person.
And when you sit down for an interview with somebody, make sure the first question you ask isn't, "What days do I get off?" and how long do we work during the day? For me, that's a red flag, and I'm out at that point. If the first thing's, when's my vacation time? When do we get off work? And what days do I get off? If we start the conversation like that, I'm out.
Yeah, absolutely.
This question comes from virtualhorsehelp.com member Brandy. First of all, I would like to say thank you so much for doing this. I gained so much information from your website, and I'm really excited about having my question answered one-on-one. So here we go. I have a 4-year-old that has an issue with changing leads. He's very lazy and prefers to suck back into a trot rather than lift and change. Speeding him up does help, but I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to get him to change correctly when we are going slow.
Don't let them trot. First and foremost, that is the worst possible habit you can let one get into, is trying to putting the lead change on one and putting that trot step in there, because that's a really hard habit to break. So I would definitely, that would be number one. Don't let them trot. If it's better at speed, make sure everything's lined up. Make sure that you can control their shoulders. Make sure that when you come across there and go to change, they don't just throw their shoulder. If you're going from right to left, make sure they just don't throw their body and shoulder to the left. Make sure you can control all of that stuff. A lot of times if I'm coming around, I want to change from right to left, I'll change them, but then continue going to the right just to keep that shoulder up and keep that body control. But if it works better for you at a little bit more speed, I would continue doing it at more speed until it's very solid, and then back it down from there until you get back down to where you want to be. But at all costs, keep that trot step out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. Teaching them that the trotting's okay is definitely what you don't want to do. I think if you're probably doing a lot of counter cantering, which is fine. A lot of people do that. Make sure that when you're counter cantering, you're not holding that horse into the counter canter all the time. Get to maybe, you might, if they've got a lot of suck back, as soon as you take your legs off and quit riding, they're going to stop. So try to get it to where they're, and not just in the counter canter, but loping around in general. But if you do counter canter, make sure that if you're inside legs on and you go to take it off, they don't immediately just fall over and suck back into your leg. Have it be to where you can move that leg around and they don't immediately go to break, because a lot of those horses that don't want to go anywhere or want to be lazy, you get a tendency to holding them up all the time, and you end up doing more work than the horse is actually doing, I think.
Yeah.
Let's help Brandy a little bit more with that question. She had a second part to it. She says, also on that note, how many times a day will you change leads on your horses in training, particularly your 4-year-olds, since that is what I am dealing with? I've heard answers all over the spectrum on this, but I would really value what you have to say on it, Tom and Joe.
Well, the lead change is a really simple, low-impact maneuver on a horse. So my 4-year-old, it depends on what level of training they're at. Some of them are better than others. Some of them are more solid than others. But if I'm working on it and I don't feel like they're really solid at it, I'll change them leads. I'll change leads 20 or 25 times a day, 30 times a day, 50 times a day, whatever it takes until I feel that they're really solid at it. If I've got one that's just dead center solid and I know it's nothing that I ever have to worry about, I'll change leads maybe 4 times, 2 times, 4 times a day, twice a week, once a week. Just, if I know it's there and it's nothing that I have to worry about, I don't do it that often. If it's something that I'm not really comfortable or that's not solid, I am not afraid to change leads, 30, 40 times a day if that's what it takes to get one solid. And it's not like turning or running and stopping where it's so physically demanding for them. It's a pretty low impact maneuver.
And I think if you have one and you're just having all kinds of heck trying to just get one change, and you don't think you can get 25, good ones, or you feel like you're getting in a bind if you're trying to do it too many times, if you can get one each way, call it good, pet them, put them up, and then maybe expand on that the next day. If you don't think you can do a bunch in succession, or you're not quite sure exactly what you're getting at, if you can just get a little bit of success and then build on that, and then try to, go up to what Tom's saying and do more per day. Because like he's saying, if there's a weak spot, then just work on it as much as you can. But if it's really bad, then I'd try to maybe just get a little bit at a time and then pet your horse and put them up.
Yeah, and remember, it's important that body control in the lead change is just as important as body control in the turnaround or the circle and every other maneuver. You got to maintain body control.
Can you define that? body control for us a little bit?
Body control meaning like if I come across there and want to pick my hands up and change leads on them, they don't, as soon as I pick my hands up, just throw their shoulder over, push their leg into, push their belly into my leg. Body control just means you're able to pick up on them and put them where you want to put them and keep them framed up. It's the biggest problem that I see with non-pros working on the lead changes is they're not comfortable enough to maintain that body control throughout. They'll let that horse start leaning on them, start pushing on them, and all of a sudden it'll work the first 3 or 4 or 5 times because that horse can do it a little bit out of position, but as they get a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more out of position, then you start missing it and then it starts being a problem, which is where the counter canter comes in so good after a lead change. You know, change one. If you're loping to the right, come across there, change that lead on the straight. As you're coming across the middle, square it up so you come straight across the middle, change that lead, but continue going to the right, counter canter them, just so they don't get to throwing their body over there. I'm going to say I'm Tommy Pitchman. You can say I'm Joe Schmidt. I really have no clue.
Damn good question.
All right.
I don't know why they do that.
Okay, what's a good answer?
Pisses
for
me
that?
off, though.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to ask that? Okay, so we'll take it from.
I'm going to let you take it.
Go to virtualhorsehelp.com and join for free and ask Tom and I pretty much any question you want. There's no such thing as a dumb question, and we're just here to help you enjoy your horse and have fun in the arena.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be show horses. It can be anything pertaining to the ranch. Actually, it can be anything at all. Just ask us anything you want to know, and I'm sure we'll have an answer.